Welcome to the Predictive Playbook. I'm your host, John Ryan. I can be found at John Ryan Sports, and I'm pleased to have Albert on for the show today, this afternoon. He's the founder and CEO of Analytics Capper. He's a professional sports consultant, and he has available member packages and additional information can be found on his website at analyticscapper.com. So make sure you visit that site, and promise you'll be glad you did. Again, that's analyticscapper.com. Welcome to the show, Albert. You've had quite a week, and people are probably wondering why you haven't been appearing on the show lately.
Yeah, no, thank you, John, for having me on the show. I was out for a good 48 hours. I was bedridden, chills, fever, body aches, the whole 9 yards. I got Moderna shot number 2 on Monday, and about 6 to 8 hours after the shot was when all the side effects hit me. So it was almost like I was dealing with the flu. Obviously, I've never had COVID before, but I would assume some of those side effects are the symptoms of COVID as I was building my immunity and my antibodies were building up. So I'm grateful that it happened. I'm grateful I took the shot. It was just really bad 48 hours. And John, as you know, I do work in the legal world in healthcare. So I work with hospitals, payers and insurance, as well as pharmaceutical companies. So I was lucky to be able to have the shot, and I'm excited for, the world to move forward, and hopefully the more people to get vaccinated, the better.
Absolutely. I'm just glad when you gave me the news, I have to admit it was pretty startling, and just glad that you're nearly 100% recovered from it, because it just has to be dreadful, and you don't wish that on anyone. So I'm glad that you're on the mend, and it's all a lot better than it once was earlier in the week, I think.
For sure, yes. I'm excited. I was still able to get a few plays out the last couple of days. Yesterday was a losing day for me. I had a big bet on the Bucks, -6. They only won by 4. I had a big bet on the Flames, and they completely, they didn't play well yesterday. I think it was a pretty close game midway through, and then the Oilers got on 2 power plays and scored on their first shot of each power play. So when that happened, I knew that luck wasn't on my side, even though it was St. Patrick's Day. It's just one of those days, a down day. So hopefully with the March Madness starting up today, first 4, I'm excited to, hopefully rake in and start profiting starting today.
Yeah, it sounds good, Albert. I think, too, that, when we're on the show together, I think we had, 4 or 5 consecutive Mondays that our picks were in sync with each other, and they won.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I do say this unfortunately, I was on the Sixers last night, and I actually kind of fell asleep in the fourth quarter, and then I woke up and checked my phone, and I was like, oh, my God. I mean, It was just unbelievable. Like, they lost. You think that game was almost over. Milwaukee scored, 29 points in the first half?
Yeah, they were shooting up 20% in the first half. They started the first quarter 0 for 10 and didn't score their first point until 6 minutes into the second quarter. It was really bad offense, great defense by Ben Simmons on Giannis. But it was a really ugly game to watch. Obviously, the Bucks did pull it out at the end. But if you look at the play-by-play, so I had Bucks -6. The Bucks actually were up 7 within a minute of regulation and allowed a Shake Milton 3 to pull it to 4. And then they were up 7 again with a minute left in overtime. And then Ben Simmons hit a 3. So it was just bad beats all around for me.
I do think that's a bad beat. I really do. But anyway, you don't know this, Albert, but today's my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, John. 21?
So, 21 squared.
Nice.
But no, it's another day in the sun. I've never gotten caught up with the actual number. I play golf a lot, and so do you. and we know the type of guys that ride the cart all the time. And I show up to the tee carrying my bag, and I sometimes get the strangest looks, like why in the world would you carry your bag when you can ride, have two cup holders, and I just enjoy the exercise, and I think over the years, it certainly has paid off. There's no doubt about it. But it's always good, to have family around and recognizing a birthday. It makes you feel young just for that. And I guess I'm somewhat surprised and humbled by the number of messages I'm getting on Twitter. So somebody is responsible for spreading the word. It has to be a friend. I don't know who it is. I'm not going to be mad, but I have to find out who it was.
I'm gonna tweet it out. I'm gonna tweet it out on my page right now. Happy 21st birthday to my friend John Ryan.
That is very kind. Very kind. So, other than the big highlight of my birthday, there's an NCAA tournament going on. And, I'm very excited about this. There's a lot of great games. You and I haven't had the time that we normally would have had.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really matter. We're going to be aligned on a lot of the stuff I'm seeing. I did do this, Albert. I came up with an idea where I took the probabilities off the 538 page. And what I mean by that is they list the probabilities of a team advancing to the next round. So, for example, Gonzaga would be like 99.5% chance to advance over Norfolk State or Appalachian State. And I compared it to my machine learning stuff. And I don't like saying machine learning because I try to keep it humble. People talk, oh yeah, AI. Yeah, our company does AI, and they don't even realize, exactly what they're talking about. But that's beside the point. But in this particular case, I ran the probabilities using some machine learning stuff that was actually developed in the 1950s, which is still very effective now. And I took the difference between 538 and what I was coming up with. Not that 538 was right or wrong, but I found through the sentiment readings that I was getting off of Twitter, which is a Python code that you're aware of, but maybe the listeners aren't, where I get 2,200 tweets. It looks for things called stop words, and it creates a sentiment. So, for example, the Philadelphia Eagles had lost 4 in a row. And in this last season is a great example. The sentiment would be horribly, horribly bad. So it creates a pie chart that I post, and I actually will post one after the show, so everybody can see it on Twitter. And, positive sentiment, negative sentiment, neutral sentiment, and through those ratios, it creates a metric, and then it tells you exactly where the public stands, and in this case, the betting public. So you might be interested to know that Gonzaga, if you're playing your bracket at your office pool and there's money involved, or if it's not in your office pool and money's involved, you have to create a bracket that's going to be different and not so different that you're taking Santa Barbara to the Final Four. It has to be a little bit more intelligent than that. So Gonzaga is the one to avoid winning the national championship based on this sentiment reading. And I'm not wishing anything bad on Gonzaga. They're one of the best efficient offensive teams in the last 20 years. But I'll say this one last thing, Albert, then I'll give you a turn. It'll be interesting to note that throughout the last week, the sentiment on Iowa has been horribly, horribly bad. They're soft. They don't have what it takes. They don't have that tenacious defense. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And guess who came up as the most negative sentiment team in my machine learning tools? Iowa. So, for example, I think you can take Gonzaga and Iowa, run them to the conference final or the region final, and then flip a coin. We're Albert and I are professionals. But there are times, like when you're playing a bracket, it is for fun. There are times where you'll bring out that gold Susan B. Anthony dollar. I think it was Susan B. Anthony, but anyway, you flip it and then you go with that team. But I do think It won't be Gonzaga, and I don't think it's going to be Baylor, based on how the public is viewing this tournament. What do you think, Albert?
So Gonzaga, obviously they're undefeated. I think they're 32-0. I forgot the exact record. It's been a weird season. But the difference with this Gonzaga team versus previous Gonzaga teams, because they've always been well coached, right? Mark Few is one of the best coaches, I would say, ever, being able to build that program over there. But they have a legitimate superstar. Obviously, Rui Hachimura was pretty good for them. Like a top 15 pick. But Jalen Suggs is a potential, top 5 type talent in the NBA. And that is a difference to me with this Gonzaga team versus any Gonzaga team in the past. So I would be a little, I would tread carefully in terms of fading Gonzaga. I think a lot of people are also, with the same mindset that Gonzaga never really, pans out in the tournament. So I'm playing that angle as well. I do like Gonzaga a lot in this region. I've been fading Iowa all year, and I've been paying for it, right? They do cover a lot. Their offense is elite. Luka Garza is also an All-American first teamer. So they have a superstar there as well. As of last night, I had them losing to Oregon in the second round, but I'll obviously have to look into that a little more. I'll redo the bracket again after the 4 play-in games today. But first, it's pretty square, but the first pass, I did have Gonzaga winning this region.
Well, there's some notes too I found in my research from the database that is really kind of interesting. This is the 20th team to enter the tournament, even before 1976 when they advanced it to 64 teams, that has gone into the tournament undefeated. And let's see, 7 of those teams ran the table. And I think Houston might have been the last. No, it wasn't Houston. It was Kentucky, I think, was the last one. So the other point is, since 1976, it has not been done, meaning no team has ran the slate in the modern tournament era of 64, 65, or 68 teams. So they would be the first to accomplish that feat. And I found that to be pretty interesting because it dovetails right into my sentiment readings. That, on paper, and not even on paper, the way they play, they're one of the best teams we've seen in 20 years. So maybe they are the first team to run the slate, and they would be deserving.
Another interesting stat, and it depends on how you feel about rematches or trying to beat a team twice in the same season, but Gonzaga has already played the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th seed of this region earlier this season, and they beat them all handily, right? They beat Iowa, Virginia. Let me look it up real quick. Yeah, so they beat Iowa, Kansas, and Virginia really easily. According to my numbers, they averaged almost 100 points in those 3 games, shooting 58% from the field and 45% from 3. So they're definitely not afraid of these bigger schools, the Iowa, Kansases, and Virginias of the world, especially because they've already beaten them. Again, it depends on how you feel in terms of whether a team can beat another elite team 2 times in one season. But they have shown that they've basically beaten everyone in the region already this year.
Yeah, the only negative really is when they played BYU for the conference championship. They fell behind, but needless to say, they made some adjustments and they just blew BYU off the court in the second half.
Yeah,
and that really reflects how strong this team is. If you had to pick a team in this bracket before we move on to another region, Albert, who do you think has the potential, or maybe there's 2 teams that you think has the potential that if everything went right, they could upset Gonzaga?
I mean, Creighton is a great team. I've been high on Creighton all year. They have athletic wings. They are also pretty well coached. If they meet, it would be in the Sweet 16. That would be a hell of a Sweet 16 game to watch. I'm not as high on Kansas. I do like Oregon and USC, but only one team there can move through. If I had to pick one team that, if they were just on fire that day and Gonzaga was having an off day, it would be Creighton for me. What about you, John?
I think you're right there with Creighton. I just like how they play. They're fundamentally sound at both ends of the court. They don't beat themselves too often. They have a great assist to turnover ratio, both offensively and defensively. I think, and that would be very interesting, a round of 16 to see Gonzaga go out. And if you were right, and you're playing your office pool, your office brackets, you'd be well on your way to possibly, beating the places that cash, depending on how big it is.
That's a great point. There's a difference between handicapping each game versus handicapping a bracket, right? If you want to win a bracket, you can't just pick what the majority is picking, because then most likely you're going to be in a situation where 80% of the other people in the field are there with you. So if you want to actually win a bracket, and instead of just placing or being in the money of a bracket, then you have to be a lot more contrarian. So the things like the Creighton over Gonzaga in the Sweet 16, or Iowa going out in the first round, things like that, and it happens, that's what really propels you to win the bracket. Again, it's a different strategy, bracket versus handicapping each specific game. But those are some strategies that you need to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a totally different way of doing it. It's similar to DraftKings with putting together 6 golfers, and Albert, I have to switch gears just a little bit here in the Players Championship, and I tend to do well in the majors, and I count the Players as a major. Sunday afternoon was the first time in my life I ever looked at the first page of the leaderboard on TV. And just about fell over because 5 of my 6 were on it.
Oh, wow.
And I became so superstitious. And I'm not very superstitious. Like when I coached baseball, I would never go out to the mound to talk to a pitcher and touch the white line. I would just pretend I didn't see it, but I would never walk on it. And much the same with this. I refused to open my app until I saw that I definitely was not going to be that $1.2 million winner, but I wanted to see where I ended up. And I ended up 814th, but it was out of 148,000. So that, it's still, the math is starting to work. It seems to get better with each major, but I have to admit the thrill of, it's like, oh my goodness gracious. Is this my day? Yeah. And, you just can't help but to have fun with it.
I have a funny story. I have a funny story with that. Is my buddy out in Houston. This was 2015. Jordan Spieth won the PGA. He actually won the DraftKings tournament for $1 million.
Oh my God!
And that's only because Jordan Spieth was a Longhorn. He picked the homer there, and it panned out for him. After taxes, he probably took home like $550 or $600. But I mean, that's an amazing pull.
That pays for a lot of trips to the beer store.
Yeah,
that's a lot of pizza and beer money.
We have a couple.
Right, that's cool.
Here. Yeah, we have a couple comments. Jordan Harder, John has been hot with the golf picks and plays. Yeah, John is one of the best out there. So I appreciate that, Jordan. Glenn Middleton, hi all. How's it going, Glenn?
Glenn didn't hear it. It's my birthday, I bet. Glenn's a great supporter of our feeds or our threads or whatever it's called on Twitter.
Okay.
He's constantly liking stuff, and he's a pretty cool guy, too.
Thank you, Glenn.
So, yeah, and I'll tell you what, the shows I do with David Behrman, which is actually going to be coming up at 1 for his second appearance this week. He's the deputy of sports information and content at ESPN. He is probably the best PGA guy that I know. Yeah, he has a feel for the game that I have not come across in my years talking golf. But it's a lot of fun and it's good. And Albert's very good at it too. So the three of us, I think, would probably do pretty well if we took our consensus and bet that our golfers that we are in sync with would finish in the top 20, say, or even the top 10. Those type of bets are the ones that are smart to do, as opposed to betting on the winner. Because then you have to be exactly right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm a big proponent on the top 20s, making the cut, missing the cut, and then also, round head-to-heads, because I'm big into one-on-one individual matchups. That's where I really profit in the tournament. So, I would love to collaborate one day with the three of us.
Yeah, we should definitely get that lined up one of these weeks. Maybe the Masters.
It's coming up.
It's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the women's U.S. amateurs at Augusta, and that's the first week in April. So, it's just so different than this time last year, and I guess in a good way, even though that was a horrible year that we went through, now we appreciate where we are now, even more so had it not happened. And I guess, that's my cheery note to say on a birthday where everything is just good.
Yeah. And for golf fans, we get the Masters twice in 6 months. There's nothing wrong about that. Yeah.
Nothing at all. Maybe they should have it twice a year.
Yeah.
Let's move down to the East region.
Okay, let's do it.
East region. The one game that stuck out with me right away on Selection Sunday, I was on a show Sunday night, was I couldn't understand why in the world Michigan State was inserted in a play-in game with UCLA. All right, I looked over here to the other Syracuse got an 11 seed?
Yeah,
Syracuse should be playing to play-in.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But, at the end of the day, I can almost see what the committee was thinking. Not that I completely agree with it now, but I can see, okay, well, yeah, all right, I'll go along with it. But it's interesting that BYU is a 6, and then you take a team like Loyola, and they're an 8. That was kind of a little strange to me as well. I mean, BYU getting a 6 seed because of the record, or because they were ahead of Gonzaga for a little bit. I didn't get that seeding at all. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the winner of the Michigan State UCLA game beat BYU and advance to play Texas and Abilene Christian. And this is a game that when I was texting you on Monday to set up the time, and then you told me how bad you were feeling with the second Moderna shot and how terrible that was. But this is a game I wanted to focus on with you because I wanted your insight. Texas Abilene Christian. Sunday night, that opened at, I think, at 8.5, and by the time we were done talking about that game, it was down to 7. And I kind of was doing one of these, like, what is that? Like, I mean, I couldn't get my hands around it.
Yeah.
So do you think Abilene Christian actually could be a play and then a little sprinkle on the money line? Or is it now time that Texas has gotten so cheap and out of favor that, we just, bang the daylights out of Texas and look for a double-digit win?
At this point, I would lean more towards the latter. I think so. Abilene Christian is in the state of Texas. There's going to be a couple of players who have high school relationships. So they've grown up in the AAU circuit. They've grown up in high school basketball. So some of these guys are going to be familiar with each other. And ACU is not a bad team. Looking at their 13-2 in conference, they have an elite offense. They actually score more per game than Texas. They give up less per game than Texas. But obviously they don't play the same competition as Texas did in the Big 10 or Big 12, excuse me there. But I wouldn't be surprised if Texas comes out slow, right? Everyone right now has really high hope for Texas. Shaka did a great job with them this season. They won the Big 12 tournament. So they are expected to win at the very least a few games, right? At the very least get to the Sweet 16, which is a big deal for Texas being a football school. So I wouldn't be surprised if they come out really slow. I wouldn't be surprised if Abilene Christian is leading at halftime. But to win the game, it's asking for too much. Texas's, backcourt with their two seniors was still reigned through. Their bigs are athletic and protect the rim very well. I still think Texas is going to win. I don't know if they're going to cover. I honestly haven't looked into the lines and the spread yet for this game, but I don't know. I don't see Texas losing straight up.
I certainly don't either. I mean, that would be shocking. Our good friend and pal Eric Haslam over at Haslam Metrics, and if you haven't been to his site, haslammetrics.com, wonderful site. If you like data, like Albert and I like data, I mean, granted, not everybody likes data like we do, but if you do, he has just an awesome site with his own metrics that provide really good intelligence and have helped both of us and Kyle Hunter and a bunch of other people we know become better bettors. So that's what these shows are all about. But he has Texas and Abilene Christian, Texas's 25th best team, Abilene Christian 67th, but only a 6-point edge for Texas. He has a 74-68 projected final score. And when he says something like that kind of gets my attention too, Albert. At the end of the day, I think it's going to be a game that I will not give to my private clients, certainly. I don't even think I'm going to offer a lean on it. I think it's one that you just pass. Yeah. And there's other games to play.
Yeah, it's hard to handicap this first round of the tournament, right? There's a lot of different storylines that come into play. You have guys that are super motivated. This could be their last game ever as a basketball player. So you just can't predict sometimes who's going to win, who's going to cover. I will say 6-7 points is a lot for the first round of a game, where Abilene Christian played so well this year. They have an awesome record. So, the value is definitely on Abilene Christian here. It's just hard to put the money on it. We have Jordan Harder here. He said he's going to be passing, not confident on either side. I agree with that.
Yep, I think all three of us do. The whole chat room, I think they're pretty much speechless right now. The other game too, Virginia. They're in a situation where they might have a one practice because of the COVID. Before this game against Ohio, and they've been largely inconsistent this last couple of weeks. I don't have a feel for whether not practicing as a team is going to hurt them, because they obviously have some very talented athletes on their team.
Yeah.
But it certainly gives Ohio, a knockout shot, a puncher's shot at taking Virginia out here in the first round. At the same time,
Ohio, for my clients, have been very profitable all season. They are a good team. They, just like how you described Creighton, they're very fundamentally sound. They don't make very many mistakes. And when they get hot, they can score with the best in the country. If Virginia, to me, if they don't have any practice time, if they don't have any film time, they don't have any scheming time to play against this Ohio offense, I wouldn't be surprised if Virginia gets run out of the gym there.
Yeah, they're playing the show I did with Rob Vino last night. He has all the venues down. He knows them like the back of his hand. His son actually went to Belmont, I believe. And so as a result, he knows that conference inside and out in Indiana, which is where all these games are taking place in this massive bubble. So this game is taking place at Assembly Hall in Bloomington, Indiana, which is far different than Lucas Oil. And we saw that in the Big Ten, that it's a very tough venue to shoot in. So any game that you see it's at Lucas Oil, you almost have to be thinking the under, especially if it's a team that's coming into that football stadium for the first time. They're actually going to have two courts in a football stadium, and they will be alternating them, I guess, because of COVID and, cleaning everything out with the seats, just everything possible to, I guess, to mitigate the chances of COVID being in the arena. And then at the same time, they can run a game on the other side. But I think you're going to see scoring averages of teams there less than their season averages, possibly by 15% or more. So keep that in mind too. This game is at Assembly Hall with Ohio U and Virginia. That'll be much more shooter friendly with the backgrounds and the depth perception. But I still, this opened at 9.5, and now it's 7, and it feels like it's going to go 6.
Oh yeah, it's going to continue to go down for sure. I think everyone is taking the same read right now, right? Lack of practice time. Ohio's a good team. The ACC wasn't that great this year. It all points to a potential upset, but I would say every time you expect something, that's when the unexpected happens, especially in this tournament. That's why it's exciting to watch.
No doubt. Absolutely no doubt. I think it's a game to play live. If you really think Virginia, for example, is the bet, I think Albert would concur with me that you probably do 50% max pre-flop, meaning that you bet 50% of your normal bet. If you bet $100 a game, bet 50, and then have two $25 bets in hand for in-game. So you would look possibly for minus 2.5 Virginia, and then try to get the dog if Ohio gets out to a huge start. I think that would be a good strategy for playing Virginia, because they could come back in the second half. They may need a half to get the rust off. But anyway, let's move on to another game here in this region.
John, let's quickly go through 2 more games, and then I have to exit.
Okay. All right. Which games do you want to hit?
Should we just do 1 game for the remaining 2 regions?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the South, we have Baylor as the number 1 seed. I actually want to talk about let's talk about North Carolina, Wisconsin. So the number 8 versus number 9, ACC versus Big Ten. What are your thoughts on this game, John?
Well, simply in a capsule form, I see North Carolina winning. I think they're a team that's on the rise. Their momentum, so to speak, as a team is increasing at an increasing rate. They're the best offensive rebounding team in the country. They're the best total rebounding team. Maybe not in the nation, but they're probably 3rd if I remember correctly. They're an outstanding rebounding team. Wisconsin's the type of plodding team that, number one, it's not played well away from home. And, it's not because of the Big Ten that it's so hard to win on the road. Their efficiencies were markedly worse than the home games. I think North Carolina wins this game pretty comfortably. And then I look for North Carolina to possibly be the one that upsets Baylor.
Oh, wow.
That's what I've been calling.
There you go. Hot take there from John. I like that a lot. So I agree with you in terms of your assessment with North Carolina and Wisconsin. North Carolina probably has the strongest front court in the country. Even though they're the 8th seed, they have 3 or 4, 5 men that can play the center position or that can start for any other team. The only issue with them is their backcourt is weak. If their guards can't get the ball to their centers and forwards, that's an issue. If their guards can't guard, that's also an issue. But if Wisconsin is not going to shoot well, if they're going to continue their road woes, like you said, then those guards are going to be off the hook. So I do like North Carolina, but I think because of their inferior guard play, I don't see them beating Baylor. But that's a very high value pick there, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I looked as far as that if North Carolina wins, they would be about a 6.5, 7-point dog to Baylor. and that would be very exciting to see that matchup.
Real
Was
quick,
it?
what's your team to get out of the South bracket, South region?
Uh, you know what? It's Arkansas.
Arkansas. I love Arkansas.
Yep, it's Arkansas. You call them a dark horse. You can call them Cinderella as a 3 seed. I don't care what you call them. They have every characteristic that I require for a Final Four team. And you know, I don't know why they're not getting the attention they deserve. And I'm actually glad they're not, because then that means I still have the value, and I still can play them on a money line rollover instead of the futures. And that's the team that I think will come out of that region.
That potential Arkansas Ohio State Sweet 16 game could be the best game of the tournament. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I agree, Albert. That's a great insight there too.
All right,
The
go ahead, John.
last game, if you have time, is in the bottom bracket here in the Midwest. Illinois, who you already know, I've already played them for the national championship in the futures. Just pizza money and maybe a 6 pack of beer combined. I do think that um, they right now coming into the tournament, I think they're the best team at both ends of the court. Of course, this can change. It can change after the first game they play against Drexel, which is a Philly team. But then we already talked about Loyola Chicago having a bad draw. I think they beat Georgia Tech, and then they get probably, possibly walloped by Illinois. But at the same time, you can't underestimate this Loyola Chicago team. And wouldn't that be something if they upset Illinois? It's March Madness, right, Albert? I'm allowed to say anything I want, as crazy as it is, and plus it's my birthday, so I can say it. But in all seriousness, you have a West Virginia club down there sitting in 3. And it's not a Bob Huggins team. Bob Huggins equals defense. For years, Bob Huggins equals defense. Now it's offense squared. And they can shoot the ball. And when they get hot, they can look like Gonzaga. So if there was a team to come out of this, I don't think it's going to be Houston. I think Rutgers takes care of Clemson because Clemson is so inconsistent and erratic. I look at the rest of the names, and they're also Rands. I think Oregon State loses to Tennessee. Everybody loves Oregon State now because they won the Pac-12. But that doesn't make them a good team. I don't know what to say. But, if there was an upset other than Illinois, I would have to call West Virginia.
I like West Virginia a lot. I actually think they're the third best team in the Big 12. I think Oklahoma State is overrated. Obviously, they have Kate Cunningham, but I like West Virginia more as a team. If we're talking about the Midwest, there's one game first round that I think is I'm not going to say lock, but very close to it. It's probably my favorite play in this region. Is I think San Diego State is going to wallop Syracuse. I think they open up as a 2.5, 3-point favorite. It'll probably stay at 3 or maybe go to 3.5. But I think San Diego is just going to score maybe 90, 95 points on Syracuse. What do you think?
I think that is the case. In fact, I was going to say this for tying this all into a ribbon. We all know about the 12-5 upsets, and it's overstated now. The trends are likely not to happen in that particular matchup this year, based on some mathematics. I think you look at the 11-6, with the exception of San Diego State, Syracuse for your upset. I do agree with Albert that San Diego State is vastly superior than Syracuse. As we said to start the show, Michigan State should have been slotted there, and Syracuse playing UCLA to face BYU in a playing game, but that's not the case. And furthermore, it's just our opinions. But I think that 11-6 slot is going to see a lot more upsets. The winner of Michigan State UCLA beats BYU. That's first and foremost. The other 11-6 matchup is Wichita State Drake playing Southern Cal. I mean, I like Wichita State in that matchup. And then the other 11-6 is Texas Tech, Utah State. I really think that they might not be bets for my clients, but in terms of filling out my bracket, that's where I'm going to be focusing the upsets.
Let's get into that Wichita State Drake game today as a first 4 play-in game tonight, and then we can end the call. But There's been a flip, right? Drake was the underdog opening as the underdog. Now they're the favorite. How do you react to that, and how do you think the game is going to go?
Well, the money flows too. I don't have the odds up in front of me. If you do, then you can help me out. But the last I looked, Albert, was that the line reversed with a greater number of tickets on Wichita State, but not by much, but a lot more money on Wichita State, which has brought them to be the current favorite. Again, I'm flying blind here, so that's what's happened, right?
No, it's actually Drake started off as the underdog. Excuse me.
And now they're the favorite. I think we just lost Albert there for a second. Hopefully he'll be back. Okay, so I apologize. I don't have the odds in front of me, but if that's the case, then that clearly supports Drake with those reverse money line flows and the betting. So I guess something to have to Albert's internet, but hopefully everything else is going well here and you guys can hear me. So I think what Albert was trying to draw there was the fact that Drake was the team that he wanted to play over Wichita State and then face USC in the first round on that would be on Saturday. So I'm going to be doing a show next here with David Behrman of ESPN. We're going to be going over some of the PGA picks that we did on Tuesday, and he has a couple games that he's going to be looking at for the NCAA tournament. So he is the deputy sports editor for ESPN. All the content that you see on the website, especially the ESPN.com/chalk. He was the creator of the show called The Daily Wager that appears 6 days a week at 6 p.m. on ESPN. So that show is actually going to be starting in about 9 or 10 minutes from this one. So as you can see today, I'm doing rapid fire, live show after live show after live show. But believe me, I'm having a blast. And I wouldn't be doing anything else, not even a round of golf right now. And that's about it. So I appreciate everybody's follows. I appreciate the birthday wishes. It's a really great day for me. It's always nice to be liked, and I appreciate it very much. So for the Predictive Playbook, I am John Ryan. And remember, may all the wins be yours.